Hi guys, my name is Brenna Bellamini and I will be making a video on how to write a successful prose analysis essay. After looking through the prose analysis prompts from the old AP Lit exams, I chose the year 2004, Form A. The prompt is about a story called The Pupil, written by Henry James. Analyzing the prompt. So the prompt for this particular example is: the following passage comes from the opening of The Pupil, published in 1891 by Henry James. Read the passage carefully. Then write an essay in which you analyze the author's depiction of the three characters and the relationships among them. Pay particular attention to tone and point of view. So my advice when analyzing the prompt would definitely be to pay close attention to the literary terms that are used, what the prompt is asking you to do, and what person, place, or thing you should be focused on. I usually go through and ask myself who, what, when, where, and why. That's just something that helps me a little bit. And in this particular example, I would have gone through and underlined the phrases analyze the author's depiction, characters, relationships, tone, and point of view. After you analyze your prompt, the next thing you're going to want to do is go through and start to analyze your text. This is really important because it's what you're going to base your essay off of. So the first things that I went through and looked for when going through the text were the things that I underlined in the prompt. I underlined characters, so I took note that through this text, Henry James creates and develops the characters Pemberton, Morgan, and Mrs. Maureen. I would also recommend really going through and just marking up your text, even circling the things that you didn't circle already in your prompt, anything from symbols to reoccurring themes to motifs, anything that stands out to you. On the right, we have a little example of the text here, and I went through and boxed in green anything that had to do with money, the theme of money, the theme of poor versus rich, anything like that. And underlined in red are describing words to depict Mrs. Maureen. And underlined in blue, it's kind of hard to see, talks about Pemberton. Just by going through and doing this, you can already see that Pemberton is poor, Mrs. Maureen is rich, and there's going to be that theme of poor versus rich and money coming into play. So that's definitely a really good thing to do to help you with your analysis. A strong thesis. So other than having really good analysis skills, you also want to make your essay organized, because even if you have really good analytical points, if your essay's a mess, you're not going to get a high score. So usually when you start writing an essay, you're going to go through in your head and think about how you're going to organize the whole thing. You try to make a firm plan and a little outline, and the best way to do that is to come up with your thesis statement. And I would recommend using a what does what thesis, and really make sure to not be vague. Use details, pull in examples from the text. I think organization is a very important part of your essay. It'll help make it clear and concise. And I put a good example of a thesis statement on here. It's actually one that has to do with the prompt. It says, using multiple rhetorical devices, James assumes a tone of light, mocking, and irony. From the perspective of an omnipotent narrator and focusing on Pemberton's reaction, James elaborates a mocking portrait of a man seeking employment. Scoring an 8 on an essay versus a 3 on an essay. For 2004, there were 3 examples listed. I'm going to talk about the 2 that I thought stood out to me. One of them scored an 8 and one of them scored a 3. On the last slide, the example that I used for a good thesis statement was actually from the essay that scored an 8. And after reading through it, the AP Lit judges said that a strength of this essay is the way it consistently interweaves discussion of all 3 characters. So they didn't leave out information, they followed the prompt. The judges wrote that the ungainly last sentence reminds us that lapses are possible even in the top range. The characters of The Pupil are ultimately sketches, stereotypes to be mocked and looked down upon, bringing up the reader's opinion of his or herself. For me personally, I wouldn't bring in the reader to my essay just because I know that each reader is different and everyone can perceive it differently, but the judges still gave this essay an 8 even though it did that. The essay that scored a 3 really was lacking some analysis. They had a lot of summary, and they talked a lot about how the essay made them feel or how it should make people feel, and that really indicates just a low level of skill. The essay was really unsuccessful because they didn't really reach that deeper meaning. They kind of just stayed on the surface and failed to analyze that text properly. The difference between these two essays were really the analysis skills. You can't merely summarize the characters or plot or the setting to get you an upper half score. You have to dive into the symbols, motifs, and themes. And for this example in particular, I would explore symbols and motifs and themes developed through the characters and their relationships, because that's what the prompt is asking for. In conclusion, I think organization and analysis are really a very important part of getting a high score on the prose analysis essay. I made some points. The first one is read through your prompt more than once and make sure to underline important topics. And that goes for not only the prompt, but also the text. Reading through it more than once with a different perspective and different focus can really help you find more points. Also, make sure to write a firm thesis statement. That will help your organization and make your essay so much more clear and concise. And most importantly, don't summarize the text. Analyze and answer the question that the prompt is asking. Thank you for watching, and I hope this helped you a little bit for your prose analysis essay, and good luck on your prose analysis essay on your AP Literature exam.